Okay, we're on Orlah, Perek Bet, Mishnah Aleph. First Mishnah in the second chapter of Orlah. We're now going to discuss a series of Mishnayot which talk about the halachot of bittul, i.e. how much multiples of one thing do you have to have in order to be mevatel, in order to negate, in order to be, for something to be batel, and which means that you can use it in the way that things were intended to be used, as we'll understand. Okay, so normally we say, normally things are mevatel or batel but notein tam. So that notein tam we calculate as being 1 in 60. But for other halachot, as we've learned before, for Orlah specifically, we've learned there are different measurements. So our Mishnah is going to give us a bunch of different categories. Says the Mishnah, hatruma, trumat maaser shel dumai, hachala v'habikurim, truma, as we know, which goes to the Kohen, trumat maaser shel dumai, which also goes to the Kohen. It certainly means also trumat maaser regularly, chala, which we've discussed in the last Masechta, and also bikurim. All those go to the Kohen. Olim be'echad umeya. They are batel in 101. Okay? Says the Bartanura. We're going to do a lot of Bartanura today. Okay? Im nafla se'a achad me'elu b'mea sa'in shel chulin betela umutar l'zarim. If it fell into 1 to 1. Here we are. Here's my picture. If one sa'at truma falls into 99 chulin, it's not batel. But if one sa'at truma falls into 100, you can imagine not sacks, but it's all getting mixed together, then it is batel. But pachot mimea, but if it's less than 100, akol asur lizarim. It's all asur. Okay, and the Bartanura explains, and the Kati also explains, that it's based on a pasuk that differentiates trumat maaser. Trumat maaser is 1 to 100. So therefore, that becomes the example where it's 1 to 100 is batel. That's where Chazal wrote it out. So all of these are olin be'echad umea. They're batel 100 to 1. Umitztarfin ze'im ze, and they are combined. Umitztarfin ze'im ze. You can combine one with another, i.e., if I have truma and trumat maaser, truma and trumat maaser. Let's say I have. Let's copy this. Okay. If I have 1 of truma, or like half of truma and half of trumat maaser. I don't feel like doing this picture again. Okay. If I have half of truma and half of trumat maaser, they're mitztaref in order to make them asur. Okay, they could be bind with each other. So if I have half of one and half of another, or 3/4 of Orlah, no, not Orlah, excuse me, 3/4 of chala, and 3/4 of asa of bikurim, and each one, and together they fall into chulin, they are mitztaref one to another. And the Bartanura explains because all of them are called kulu mikarian truma. We've learned this in the previous Mishnayot. In the Psukim, each one is referred to as called Truma. And since one is called Truma, therefore, halachically, they're combined with one another. If it's Sarich Laharim. Sarich Laharim means, if my Sa'av Truma falls into 100 of Chulin, even though we say it's Batel means now it's all considered halachically Chulin. You still have to take out a Sa'ah. It's all mixed out, so you can imagine it's not just one basket, but you still take one out and you have to give it to the Kohen. And the reason is, the Bartanura says, why do you have to be Laharim? Okay? Even though shani truma is different. Sheyesh la ba'alim, it has an owner. Tzarich liharim mimenu mipnei gezel hashevet. You have to be mirim. You have to take out because of gezel, because you're stealing from the Kohen. Okay, so when there's a chashash, all of these things, trumat maaser, chala, and bikurim, they all go to the Kohen. So therefore, even though it's batel, even though halachically, when this one falls into 100, it's batel, and it's all considered halachically chulin, you still have 101, and one belongs to the Kohen. So you have to take it out, you have to take out one sa'ah, and you have to give it to the Kohen. Okay, next, the next example is Orlah. Remember, first 3 years of a tree. Uklaya hakerem, that's prohibited mixtures in the vineyard, that's in Isur D'Oraita. Both of those are olim be'echad u'matayim. We've learned this in previous Mishnayot, so now it's explicitly stated. They are batel 200 to 1. Umitztarfim ze'im ze, and they can be combined. So meaning, if I mix Orlah and Klaya Karim together, and each individually does not reach the more than 1 200th threshold, more than 1 to 200th threshold, but together they do, they are mitztarif, ve'en tzarich laharim. Okay, they combine, and you don't have to take out if they're batel. Why? Because once they're batel, it doesn't belong to anybody. It doesn't belong to the Kohen. So therefore, there's no problem of gezel to the Kohen. Rabbi Shimon says, Einam mistarfim. They don't combine. So therefore, in our case, let's say I have a half a sa'ah of Orlah, and then I also have a half a sa'ah of Klaya Hakerim. 1 half and 1 half. Okay, and then both of those Sa'av, Orlah, and Klai HaKarim, I'll make the Klai HaKarim. Let's make it a different picture, different color. So we know that's Klai HaKarim. Oops. Format picture. Color. I'll make it blue. Okay. I have 1 Orlah and 1 Klai HaKarim. Each one is a half. So, and each one falls in here. So according to, where we're looking at Rabbi Shimon, who says they're not mitzaref, according to Rabbi Shimon, who says they're not mitzaref, they're not combined, then what you have is 1 to 200, 1 to 200 mixture, because it's 1 half to 100 of Klai HaKarim. And you also have 1 to 200 mixture of Orlah, and therefore each one is batel. They're not combined to one another, and therefore each one, since they're different shemot, they have different halachic statuses, they're not mitzaref, because they have different, the Orlah and Klai HaKarim are shnei shemot. That's what the Bartenura says. Why are they not mitzaref? Rabbi Shimon says, Kivan d'shnei shemotnin. That's what I said. There are 2 different names. They have 2 different halachic statuses, and therefore they're not mitzaref. Mishnah continues. Rabbi Lezer Omer mitzarfin b'not tein tam. If it's lach, i.e., they're 2 wet things, so therefore they become combined. Derech Hagav, and grain is together considered davar lach. But let's say they're not. This is not a sack of grain, but it's a sack of oranges. So the taste doesn't mix together. So Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Lezer says, if they're no tein tam, if it's something that mixes together, like grain or liquids or like wine, then they are mitzaref, because in the end, they can combine to create the 200 to 1. Avalo le'esor, but if they're yavesh, if they're mixed together, if they're just oranges and they're not mixed together, they don't have tam, then they have the din of 2 shemot, and then he holds like Rabbi Shimon that they're not mitzaref for isur. So just I made you a little chart in order to put this all together, or to understand in a better way. Trumat Maaser Shnei Achalim Bikurim are Olin Be'echad Me'ah. Okay, 1 to 100. Then they're batel. They are mitzaref, and you have to tzarich laharim. You have to take off that extra sa'ar, whatever got mixed in, that quantity, in order not to steal from the kohen. Whereas Orlah and Klai HaKarim, they're more chamor. They're much more chamor because it's 1 to 200. You have a machloket whether mitzaref. Tanakama says yes. Rabbi Shimon says no. Rabbi Lezer says it depends whether it's yavesh or lach. And in the end he says, but ein tzarich laharim. Even though it's more chamer, you don't have to take off that extra sa'ar that got mixed in because it doesn't belong to the kohen. We'll stop here. As always, if you have any comments or questions, email me at rspolter@gmail.com. And we'll dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, of Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman.